waiting is only keeping the people who are waiting on your service to the world waiting. There's no need to wait. If you like God, if he's calling you and you can feel like it's the right time, for me, I felt like I was ahead of him. But if you feel like you're stalling because it doesn't feel like it's time, just get in a space where you can think about who needs your help.
Yes.
And let that pull you through whatever you feel like you're waiting on. Because tomorrow's not promised.
Thank you so much for coming on. We are so incredibly grateful. I love that God connected us. Like, it's so
I know.
wild.
And it was like in the nick of time.
Yeah, because
literally, that was crazy.
No, we like left like 2 weeks later. That was, like when God tells us to do something, you will find we're very obedient. Because that wasn't on the books. I think you and I were like, okay, let's figure out dinner. You know how we're gonna like. Actually, girl, I'm moving to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I was like, here's a few days that work for us. And you're like, actually, I'm moving Friday out of the country. I was like, dang, okay.
Gosh, let me introduce you to everyone. Everyone, this is Brittany Stinson, owner and COO of Seeding Greatness. She's a coach, author, TED Talk speaker, and host extraordinaire, wife, mother of four. Like, how do you do it? You have so many different hats, and it's beautiful because it really allows women to really realize, like, you can lead such an incredible life. You can really activate the Holy Spirit in all these different areas, but we'll dive a little bit more into that. I love that God connected us. I'm so, so grateful. I love everything you're doing. I saw your, the book on like New York? What is that?
Yes, we were in Times Square in New York City. I will be honest, that was my first time in New York City. I flew in that morning, did all the amazing things, and then I flew back home. I was that city was awesome, but it was very overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lot. So this is the book.
The Joyful Entrepreneur. Love that.
Yeah, so it's an anthology. So there's a lot of awesome people in here. Mine is on chapter 9, the power of the and just you're multidimensional, like your creator. So, you know, you don't have to fit into a box. The world says you have to like pick a lane and do that thing. And I'm like, well, so many of us don't. It's a really good friend of ours that publishes them. She actually has Fit Press Publishing. So we got to go there and see our faces on a billboard, and it was running every hour for like 48 hours. And so we got to go down there and pass out books and just talk to people about the book. It was like surreal to be in the city and then to see my face on a billboard for my first time there. It was really, really cool.
It won't be the last, right? Like, we already.
You know what? I felt that it was like, let's do this again, because this feels really good. It was really fun. Yeah.
What a blessing, seriously.
Yeah.
And no, it definitely won't be the last, just because I've had the opportunity to catch a few of your talks, and I just know how passionate you are about people. And I think that that's like the secret sauce to really help people, period. Someone can't be self-centered. Like, we have to be, you know, excited to help others. And you're just such a light. I love that about you.
Aww, you're so
when I first met you, I was like, I really like her so much. Like, and then I remember getting in the car and being like, that was wild, God. Like, what was that, you know?
Yeah.
So super.
I know.
Next. Sorry to bounce out of the United States.
I know.
I did something criminal at that point.
I told my husband, I was like, we're going to have dinner with this amazing new family. I just met her. I think you and her husband are going to get along. Yeah. You know, and I was like really like geeking it up. And then he's like, so like when? And I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe not till next year. We'll see.
Which is so funny because it wasn't even the case. Like, we were going to be back September 30th, and then God had some different plans. And so I'm really just riding on God's time. I mean, have you ever, hang on, we got golf carts.
Yes.
I'm like, I gotta show you where I'm at right now because it's like the best lighting.
Oh my gosh. How beautiful is that? We just need to come visit. So that was the plan.
Or something.
Yeah. Any reason to get down there? It looks epic where you're at.
Oh, I will not be here for that long. We're actually already planning to head out, but we'll be in the same area. Well, I don't know, God willing, because he keeps, moving some parts around, but he confirmed a few different things, and we're like, okay, so let's see.
Yeah, we've done that. We've moved. So we're both originally from Michigan, and we moved to an hour away from where we were working and leading at a church. We moved an hour away to be satellite campus pastors. And then, so that was like the first big move. And then we moved from Michigan down to Atlanta. And we were there for about 7 years, and then up to Franklin, to the Nashville area. So anytime God says go, there's like in honesty, there's a bit of like a conversation, there's a wrestle, there's a discerning period. But it's funny because I feel like for the most part, if you are in a consistent like relationship and you're in a conversation, you kind of just know when you know.
Yeah.
And then anything that comes after is just the conflict with that knowing. It's really not, did he say, we say that.
Yeah.
We pretty much know, but then we're just like trying to get our humanity caught up with what God just was, what we actually know. So
I mean, there's a wrestle with that sometimes afterwards, but you're totally right. When you have a deep relationship with him, it's like when you know, and it's so amazing as, husband and wife to be linked with that. Because then it's like, I have discernment, he has discernment, and you're unified in that. And it's really cool because that's kind of what it was with moving to the Dominican Republic. We were like, and actually the same with Tennessee, which is super interesting. Same thing. We were in Las Vegas, Tennessee. Las Vegas took about like 4 months. Obviously, the Dominican Republic was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But with that time, I just remember, being certain, but because of other people's opinions, it was a discertainty. Is that a word?
It feels right.
Feels right. We're gonna roll with it.
Yeah. No, I get it. Our family was they had big emotions when we said we were moving out of Michigan. By the time we left Georgia 7 years later, Daryl's 2 sisters, my brother had moved down. My dad had visited a ton of times. My mom had moved from Michigan down to Florida, so she was in a whole different situation. Yeah. So when we left Michigan, everybody was there, and by the time 7 years later, everybody had kind of made their own moves. But it's hard to go first. It's hard to feel like what God is saying, and you don't have a ton of like family, who are like walking the same path as you. Yeah. It's like, going first in your family is a whole different feeling. So we've been there, done that a few times. But it's a beautiful thing when they turn around and they're like, oh, I thought y'all were crazy. God is really telling you things. And so then, it's a whole nother moment to get to point to him. And so it's awesome.
I was just thinking that during you sharing about your story, how beautiful that is, that, you are a testament to God, right? Like, you're like, hey, like, I'm his vessel. I'm just here chilling. And when we're really obedient, he does open up a lot of different things. And it doesn't come with like, a smooth road, but I love that. Can you actually talk more about that? I had a different plan, but can you talk more about what it really looks like to be a pioneer in your family? Maybe when your family, and not to say that your family's negative or anything, I'm sure they were fantastic. But many people, they have to be the first. And that's really scary when someone's like, you can't do that. That's like, it'll hurt your family and being away from family. And what are you doing? And you're switching careers. And what do you mean you're going to be all in with this? Like, that doesn't even pay. Does it pay? Just all the different things. Can you really dive into that? Just being like so rooted in being a pioneer for your family and creating a legacy, because I know that's really huge on your guys' hearts.
Yeah, big time. So Daryl and I grew up very differently. So I grew up in a really small town in Michigan. He grew up in an inner city further south in Michigan, like closer to Detroit and Jackson. And so we both had very different upbringings, and both of us, I think, are really carving new paths in our family. But when we got together on the basis of you love God, I love God. That is like undeniable. And we both got saved at the same church in college. And so, yeah, we were able to have that. And so on a lot of really hard days where we're like, we have 4 kids, and the day we decided to move all of our kids, well, we only had 3 at the time, but to move all of our kids out of Michigan, where all of our family was at the time, it's understandable that they were frustrated, right? Like now they have to drive 12 hours to come see their grandkids. I get that.
Yeah.
But the conversation that I had time and time again with God, with my husband, with people that we were in, mentors and guides to us, it's like, is the best place for your family, for your kids, in his will or out of his will? Now, out of his will could mean closer, like distance, proximity to family, or it could mean looking like you follow the same career that you've always seen your family do. Both sides of our family I can look at, we both could have followed in what our parents did. But we became first we were pastors, and then through COVID, we became entrepreneurs full time, still doing ministry, just in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that is like, it's wild to our family. They sometimes, I think, still don't understand, like, what do you do and how do you pay your bills? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. But we've learned that it's like there's this uncomfortable period. As long as he and I are on the same page and we're on the same page with God, it all works itself out. There are really hard days and extremely long seasons of prayer, or, just like waiting in the in-between. It gets uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But God, he's never late. He's never early, but he's never late. And, so I think that's been the best thing, is just to be able to watch my kids, watch our business, watch our marriage flourish, because we're able to continue to follow God. And if we were outside of that, there's like this like umbrella that is his grace. If I move up from under that, everything gets harder. So if I think it's hard under here, I don't even want to understand. Like, I don't even want to, I don't want to know what it's like over there. Yeah. So that's really that. At the end of the day, like, what did God say? And what's the last thing God told us to do? We're going to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And we're consistently in a conversation of how are we becoming more like him, so that we know what's next. Yeah. And so whatever expression of that, business, family, marriage, friendship, whatever, like, expression of our God likeness, that it changes, but that's the path.
No, I love that. I love that you're talking about that, because it can really be difficult. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, what did he say? And are you going to function outside of that? Because functioning outside of what God says is, in my opinion, a very dangerous place. And I don't want it. I don't want whatever comes with that, right? Because I know that when we're under his protection, that it's a whole different ball game. That there obviously is going to be stuff that we have to combat, and feelings that come with that. But I mean, we went through that with moving to the Dominican Republic. Like, my 16-year-old was like, what about my driver's license? My birthday, all these different things. And it's like, it's very temporary. We're just being super obedient, and obedience doesn't always mean clarity. I think a lot of people don't move because they need clarity. Like, I need to see the full road ahead of me before I do that. And that's just not what obedience looks like, right?
Yeah.
If we knew what everything looked like, it wouldn't be called faith.
I love that. Exactly. Like, it's not an exercise in faith if he gave you steps A through Z, right? And we've learned, like, clarity is a process of expression, right? Like, the more I move and take action, things get a little clearer, even if it's maybe a seemingly like wrong decision, which you can't make a wrong decision with God, right? Like, at the end of the day, he's just going to continue to reroute you, and you're going to continue to get more feedback and understand more. But if you just stay still waiting, I understand, like, the scripture, right? Like, be still and know, but there's so many other scriptures, like, faith without works is dead. So you got to, like, put some movement under your feet to find out, like, well, what are you saying? I need more clarity. And it's like, He wants you to move to find out.
Yeah.
Make some moves in alignment with what you know that he's showing you.
Yeah.
It'll get more clear along the way. Yeah.
100%. And that actually kind of brings me to my next question for you. I heard that you, and not that they correlate, but kind of it makes me think of God's plan for you, because you have really, gone on to build a movement of leaders that are really impacting the world with their stories. And that's just amazing. But I heard that you overcame alcoholism and like unhealthy relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. Can you tell us more about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That was that was a long.
That wasn't one of the questions.
No. If I put it in my bio, I feel like it's up for grabs. No, it's okay. So my grandpa, my mom's dad, actually was an alcoholic, and so he ended up, when she was only 16, he was riding his motorcycle around this like curve, and there was a ravine right there, and he crashed down in there, and then he was in a coma for a lot of years. And so my mom ended up having to be the power of attorney for her own dad, because there was a little indecision about what to do, in terms of like his life support. So it's definitely a disease that runs in our family.
Mm-hmm.
And I started drinking just very like recreationally in high school. It was like, oh, we'll sneak out or tell my mom I'm doing this thing and then go over to this party instead and drink. And it didn't seem like an issue because it was so social.
Yeah.
But when I got to college and it became something that I felt like I had to do, like even if it wasn't a party that night, but it was like, oh, well, I don't feel comfortable trying to like go to sleep, or I feel too anxious when I'm just hanging out and with myself. Like at that point, it's gone from just like, oh, I have control over it to it has control over me for sure.
Yeah.
So there are very blurry memories that I know God's hand was on me through college. Like driving from tailgating at a football game to try to make it to my shift at the restaurant. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be alive. I shouldn't be, I should have a record. There's just really poor choices that I made when I wasn't sober, and it lasted for a really long time. And then my little brother, sort of the same path. He would come visit me at college, drink way more than what was healthy, couldn't really like control it. And I don't think I allowed myself to pay much attention to how much I was influencing it. I think I just kind of like suppressed that part of it out. But he looks up to me. I am 2.5 years older than him. And I feel terrible that I was, like sort of feeding this disease that runs in our family. And so he's had his own sort of sordid history with drinking and driving and things like that. So I went on a fast my senior year in college. I got saved. I went on a fast, 21-day fast at the beginning of the year, like a lot of people do. And that was the first time that I hadn't drank for 3 weeks in years.
Wow.
And I still had my same friend group. So it was really hard to like go be hanging out, but I quickly had to like figure something else out. 'Cause I'm like, I can't be around y'all. I don't yet really have that much self-control, but I was in this fast and I was fresh and on fire for God. I was like, me and you, God, we can do this, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was 3 weeks went by, and then it lost the hold that it had. I've had a drink like since then here and there, but I know deeply that what I was going through back then is broken through. It was broken in those 3 weeks, and like God is in control, and definitely Holy Spirit will help me in a moment where I'm like, hey, is this something I'm choosing to do, or am I thinking about having this drink because I feel any emotions coming up? And if I can feel like it's not just because I genuinely just have a positive reason for it, it's not, it doesn't have the same control that it did before. And I'm so thankful for his grace. Like I'm here because he's just so good.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think that a lot of people have like these things that maybe still have a grip on them and maybe feel like this level of shame, because the enemy loves to do that, right? He he gives you this level of shame, and like, oh, you're at a party and you're not drinking, here's shame. It's like, why?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Why do I have that? And so I love that you were able to partner, with God and really break that off of you and not carry that on into your children. If they see you in celebration, just like, Jesus, he had wine, but I'm sure, and I'm 100,000% sure that, he wasn't, what is it? What is the word? Plastered?
Plastered. Yeah. But
I'm like, what is the English word?
No, I love it because the shame is a big thing. I read multiple books on shame. Even the fact that it's in my bio now and that you were able to like read that somewhere and ask me that question, like a few years ago, that would have been absolutely not. Like I felt it was still very much a part of my identity of like, I wish this didn't exist in my past. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, act like it was a part of me. But thankfully, through just, lots of therapy and lots of God and just lots of separating this old identity from like who I am today, I think when we don't talk about things, it does give that shame that much more power.
Yeah.
So talking about it in a way that's not glorifying it or like like, oh, this is like a badge of honor that it used to be this way. No, but it's like, hey, can I just have a frank and honest conversation about what used to be? 100%, because we all have things that are in our past that we probably wish didn't exist, but can I talk about it so that somebody else can hear me talk about it and feel the freedom to talk about their own stuff? That's the only way it breaks its power off of you, is to bring it out into the light.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that because sometimes, even as women, we kind of struggle with identity, not in the way that the world is right now. It's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, different. Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking,
yeah.
Just like this, I have so many different hats, and also like, I have this background and I don't want people to know about that because I've already stepped out of that. And how will people look at me? And, what about my children finding out about these things? And it's like, I understand having this level of protection and wanting to protect yourself. But at the end of the day, like, our story is our story for a reason. And we have incredible power when we take ownership over it. And, we share and we're like, hey, like, this is who I was, but look how great God is. Like, and he can bring you out of whatever it is that you're going through too. And with us having this strong testimony, we're able to really help other women, right? Because it's like, why do we go through that? I mean, I'd love for you to talk about that because you have so many different hats that you're wearing, right? So, you're a mother and you're a wife, and also I think you shared with me briefly that, your husband, and so, I don't know if he still struggles or, maybe in the past struggled with mental health issues and being his helpmeet with that. And so we'll dive into that in just a second. But for you, really being grounded in your identity and not just mother, and I hate to say it like that, but some people like, they take that on, and that's why, their kiddos leaving to go to college or whatever is so difficult, because then they're like, well, who am I? So, just really your identity, being grounded in that. And if you had to really guide someone else through that, what would you say? Because entrepreneur, wife, healer, all the things. I'd love for you to share if you're open to it.
Yeah, it's so good. And I know what you mean. Like, just a mom is not even a thing. A mom in and of itself is a whole career. Yeah. You get at these networking events and people are like, oh, what do you do? And it's not always like the sexiest thing to be like, well, I'm a wife and I'm a mom and I do all these dope business things, right? It's often like you want to lead with the thing that you feel like the other person is looking for. And I think that somewhere along the way, I got really caught up in that. I felt like, because I was working at a church in the office, right? I was like doing the books and doing the payroll, and then I was working pretty much for my husband as like assistant and online business manager. Yeah. And then I feel like I work for my kids. I think a lot of moms feel that way. I just felt like I was second to like all these things. The way that I started to try to reclaim my identity was like, I'm going to go build my own business and I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to have my own clients. And it was such a flop. It was such a flop because I write about this in the anthology. I tried to separate and I tried to build this new facade of like, here I am, strategist, business person, I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I did this like hard cut off of everything else. And I started a new Instagram page and I was like, I'm only going to be known for these things.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work because it's such a one-dimensional version of me.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is a lot in this like hustle grind culture that it's important that we talk about business, but it's so unrelatable. And thank God, like algorithms are coming around now that you can just put out like genuinely honest content. And you can share about your kids. You can share about what you're eating. You can share about, like I share about our anniversary, and that gets more posts, or, like interactions than a lot of business stuff. But the point is, if you were to sit down and try to write out, like, I am this, like, first, I'm a child of God, and I'm a daughter, and I'm a wife, and a mom, and a friend, and an aunt, and all these things. And the list is so long.
Yeah.
And when you look at, okay, yes, I am all of these things, but when it's just me alone with my thoughts in quiet time with God, what excites me?
Yeah.
What do I love? What's super energizing to me? Maybe there's like music or food or, destinations like for trips that you told yourself you like because you just genuinely have just gone with the flow for so long.
Yeah.
But as women, like, we actually have really like honest opinions.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes our opinions have been clouded by all these hats we wear. So that's the journey I've been on the last couple of years, is like, hold on, I know I can find my voice. And I know that I don't have to swing so far over to one side to be like, no, I'm independent.
Yeah.
But it's like this melting together of all these things. So my husband and I run our business together. I'm so thankful that I stopped trying to do my own thing because we were always called to this. Like, what a bad, like, thank God. And we have a vision that our kids they get to do all the fun things with us. And so, yeah, none of it has to compete. I just think that God can work it all together. But you have to get honest about, hey, what do I really like? What do I like when I'm not trying to impress anybody else?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you share about that, honestly, because it's something that a lot of women like go through, and then they feel like this level of shame because of it, or they feel that they're supposed to be performing, like it's a constant performance. And yeah, I mean, it's so
sorry.
funny. No, you're fine.
Can I mute so I'm not coughing in you?
What's that? You know what? We'll both take a drink break.
I'm trying not to cough and make your buds blow up.
I keep it really raw and honest, like even like there's like golf carts going by, so I might be like golf cart. But I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, that might happen. Oh yeah, and so it's interesting because when we're walking in the space of not trying to combat our identity and being like confident in who we are, I see a lot of this nowadays, right? We're seeing a lot of on Instagram, like, be your authentic self. And it's like, what the French toast does that even mean? Like, like, because we have so many different things. And then you're so right. Like your social media, I know I've done this where even for like the fierce woman, I was like, oh, I'm going to create like its own thing. And, praise Jesus, my husband and I do everything together. So it's really interesting because even within the group, like, people will be like, oh, so like you do it all. I was like, no, I do not.
Nope. And I couldn't.
My husband, he is 100% like a huge foundation for the Fierce Woman, as I am a foundation for My Name is Champion. And then we have like Stephen Wilderness and all these different things. And so it's like, we are there together doing things. And so I remember when I was like, oh yeah, I did my own Instagram and stuff. He's like, why? Like, it was him that was like, why? And I was just like, well, because they know the fierce woman, and it could be by itself. And he was like, Lily, we do this all the time for our traditional businesses. It makes sense that that's like by itself. But at the end of the day, like, and my husband's so beautiful. He was like, God bless you with the name that he did. Why don't we just roll with that? And anybody who's actually excited to join you in your journey, awesome. And whoever's not, that's fine too. Right. And so I think for me, being such a people pleaser, that was like a really big one. It's like just being okay with my name, just being like just this, and not having like, oh yeah, my name is Lily, but I own this. And, we make multiple figures. And honestly, like if somebody were to see us just like you guys, like we're just regular people. We're just regular people. We go through regular things. And I think because we have that grounding, we're able to help elevate other people. Like you've done so beautiful, and beautifully with being able to elevate others and their stories. Like that's a gift in itself. Seriously, because a lot of people try to, like you just said, stray away from their stories. They don't want to talk about like the gritty stuff. They only want to talk about the positive stuff. Like there's coaches out there that actually tell people like, don't put the negative stuff. I'm like, why? Like,
no, how can you relate to anybody without? And my husband does this whole teaching. It's really awesome, but he's like, no, you don't get up there and trauma dump on everybody.
Yeah.
We're not advocating for that, but there is a level of being vulnerable.
Yeah.
That allowing yourself to be seen in the messiness, whether it's today's messiness or from the past, either way, like I can't relate to you if I can't see anything that's imperfect about you, and then what are we doing? What conversation are we actually having if we're just talking about rainbows all day? Like there's
there's no impact with them. And I think that for you too, it's very clear that with Jesus being so rooted in like, hey, like this is like the storytelling, and you do the same thing, which is really cool. You're like, hey, like here's the story, and here's my husband's story, and here's my family. And I think that that's just a special space, because for me personally, it's a reminder of like you remind me so much of Jesus in beautiful ways. I'm like, oh yeah, like, and so just being that Christ-like woman, which actually brings me to my next question.
Okay.
Inspired you and Daryl to step into the world of entrepreneurship and motivational speaking? Like,
wow.
You asked was like, what was it that you were like, this is it, like this is what we're doing? And then how do you really involve your children into that journey?
So I'll be honest, Daryl, I'm so thankful for him. I'm so thankful. I hope I listens. I hope I get all the points. He is like, he's been amazing. He's gone first in a lot of ways in terms of like leading, in sharing and being vulnerable and like processing his emotions. He had a counselor long before I did. He wanted to have the difficult conversations way before I did.
Yeah.
None of that ever felt safe for me to talk about, or even in the privacy of just a conversation with he and I. It took a lot for me to talk about. I didn't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
Right. And so he started speaking he was doing marketing consulting, and he had an old intern from his old job at our college that was like, hey, we're doing this event and we need a speaker on marketing. And so he went and just knocked it out of the park.
That's awesome.
He started doing speaking with student athletes, and with like Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And he was working with FCA a lot, and then we were doing addiction recovery ministry at our church, and they have a meeting 5 nights a week. So lots and lots of speaking. And then,
did he go through addiction as well?
No, he never went through recovery, nothing like that, but he was the outreach pastor. And so we would host the addiction recovery meetings at our church. And I always wanted to preach, which is funny thinking about it now, the like evolution that it's taken. But we used to host, like on Sunday mornings, if you go to like a big church and they have like the two people that get up and like host and like do the announcements and stuff. We used to do that together, but there was always this like phase out of worship and into the normal service that there was. And so I would, I was up there kind of like doing my thing, and I was like, I really like this. This is fun.
I love that.
So it was sort of like this like smattering of different like experiences of speaking, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And he had already launched Second Chance Athletes, which is our nonprofit. And so he kind of got further into speaking with that. But then through the pandemic, he started to coach people on speaking because he could see how much of a growth, he was growing just as much as his clients were growing. Every time you get out on a stage and you push your edge a little bit further and you share a little bit more and you share more of your stories. And so it was preaching and then it was speaking. And so now he has this mental health message that if it's in any type of Christian setting, he's able to really share his testimony through it.
Yeah.
But it's very much like sustainable high performance. And so every time he spoke, he was like, man, I'm healing through this.
Yeah.
And so I got to watch that happen.
Yeah.
So now we get to coach people to do that. And now I'm in my own process of the same thing. And so I've got stages coming up and gigs coming up, and
so excited.
I love it. It's so fun. And it's funny because as a Christian, pride is like one of the nastiest words that, you can throw around. Or
what is it?
if for some pride, like
pride.
if somebody,
I think you said wise. I'm like, I'm either hungry or hearing.
No. No, I am hungry. That sounds amazing. No, but if somebody was to call you prideful, it's like a dagger, right? I've been called that in church settings, and I look back now and I'm like, okay, well, that probably wasn't the healthiest religious setting, but
yeah,
it's a hard thing to be called. And so I think for a long time I held back and from telling people what I really wanted to do because I didn't want to, as a speaker, you're like, oh, I have the mic and the spotlight's on me and I'm up there. And it's like, I didn't want to be seen as prideful, but thank God he's like, hey, I gave you a story and I gave you an ability to communicate. Yeah. If you don't go do something with it, and I have had words come to me. We were in Cancun last April, and we were at a speaking mastermind in Cancun, and this woman, she was one of the coaches. She came up, she's like, hey, God is telling me, like, if you don't go do this now, like, it's just going to get painful. Whoa. Like, stop sitting on it. And I was like, I know, God, I know. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of how we got into what we do now, which is we coach speakers on storytelling, very much where your story meets your professional expertise, and able to help people do TEDx talks and things like that. So
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, and our kiddos. Anytime we get to travel, we bring them with us. Yeah. We've driven from Nashville all the way to California to Sedona and back. Like it's wild. If we can make it happen, we do. Yeah. They don't always get to come. My oldest is very she feels very safe in her routine. So if I'm like, you're going to miss a couple days, she's like, oh, it's a thing. But whenever we get to bring them, and I try to inch them out of the matrix, little by little. But every time they come, they love it. So I don't even know what the wrestle is. But so Daryl has a gig at a really fun retreat center in Georgia in June. And so they just booked for the whole family to come. So anytime we get to do stuff like that, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I think that I love that you're talking about that because, most people, what they typically do or a lack of not doing is they won't step into something because they have a lot of children. And you have 4 kids, I have 4 kids. And so it can feel like, oh, I can't do this, or I have to wait till they're older to be able to do this. So I love that you're talking about that because I know our kids, they come with us. I don't think there's one speaking engagement that our kids haven't been to. I think it's really, really important to involve them. And what's beautiful, the fact that you are involving them is that they get to see the growth, they get to see the impact, they get to see how you're using your story. I think it's beautiful because, some people, they feel like, oh, I have to wait. I mean, have you ever encountered that? Like, have you ever felt like, man, I need to wait till X, Y, and Z instead of just being all in, you know, like most people are so scared to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's funny because I never wanted to wait. I was always like, hurry up, God, hurry up, God. But he had me wait. You know, when Daryl was at a satellite campus, when he was doing like the leading and teaching on Wednesday nights, I was up in the nursery changing diapers. And I would have killed to switch places. Not that I need my husband to change the diapers, but I was like, oh, I was just so not into what I wanted to do. But I've very much been like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But it's funny because then the minute I get an opportunity, then I'm faced with like, oh, do I actually want what I've been saying that I wanted all this time? Because then the rubber meets the road. Like, you still have the kids and you still have responsibilities and you still have a business and you still have or your career. Like, we were doing double duty, like working regular jobs and building our business for a long time before we went full time. So when you get the opportunity and then you really are faced with, okay, now it's time to do the thing you say you want to do, it doesn't just magically get easier.
Yeah.
And so any illusion of like someday it'll get easier, just like release yourself from that, because it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There is no magical perfect scenario. Like, we had a pastor tell us years ago, gosh, had to be 10 years ago. He said, you are less busy today than you'll ever be. And I chuckled because I felt super busy at that time. Well, I only had one kid at that time. I did not have a business in the capacity that I have today. I wasn't trying to do all these other things. And so he was absolutely right. So waiting is only keeping the people who are waiting on your service to the world waiting. There's no need to wait. If you like God, if he's calling you and you can feel like it's the right time, for me, I felt like I was ahead of him. But if you feel like you're stalling because it doesn't feel like it's time, just get in a space where you can think about who needs your help.
Yes.
And let that pull you through whatever you feel like you're waiting on. Because tomorrow's not promised. We've lost some really dear people to us this year or last year. And it's like, stop waiting. Just stop. It's going to be messy. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a little bit rocky. It's going to feel awkward, or you might get in a thing because your schedules don't sync up. But stay in constant communication. Keep talking and keep praying, and stop waiting. Like, please stop waiting. The world needs your message.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's when we really think about it, it's like how many Christians are like, I'm in my waiting season. And it's like,
have you kept yourself there? Because that's probably not God.
Yes. And that often is the case, that people feed procrastination, which really, if we really think about what is procrastination, it is fear. It's typically a fear and us stalling to really activate things that are necessary within our lives. And it keeps the enemy excited. Right? Like, it's excited because he knows you're not serving your purpose. You're not doing what God called you to do. And then he probably gets even a funnier thing, because he's like, they're saying it in the name of God, but running the show right now.
Yeah, if it's fear, because there are developmental seasons. But even in your development season, if it feels like a quote unquote waiting season, you do not have to feel stagnant. Like, embrace that season. I turned that whole children's ministry. We turned it out. We painted the walls. Once I got over my little pity party of changing diapers, we decked it out. We had like 5 to 6 kids on Sundays by Easter. So a few months later, we had 50 kids on Easter. What? I was like, we are doing this because I am like, God had a hard conversation with me. Like, this is a development season for you right now. So you do not have to feel stagnant in that, but you don't have to stay stuck there. Get everything out of that season that you possibly can. And then you won't feel like you're stalling or waiting, because then the moment you know it's time to shift gears, you're ready because you're already in momentum. And then he can send you to the next thing. Just stop calling it waiting. It's not, if you're scared, it's okay. Just say that, but do it afraid. Yeah.
Oh my God.
No.
So I have 2 more questions for you. But so with us talking early about this, I noticed that, you prioritize things really well. You prioritize your health and your wellness, really amidst your family and your business life. Like, how are you really balancing that? I mean, your life is full throttle, blessed. It's full.
I love that. Yeah.
And I know that some people might have a negative perception of that. Like, I have this and this and this. And so, like, expanding our capacity. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, you said it, expanding our capacity. Like you are stronger than you think you are. You have more time than you think you do. If you get really honest and track your time for just 1 week or 2 weeks, you can see tons of gaps. And I'm not saying fill in all the time, but I am saying schedule the most important things first. So the first things that go on our calendar, right? Where do we fill up spiritually? How are we spending time as a family? Where's our time with my husband and I? Where's, time to work out? Where's like the most important things? And then we fill in the most important business things. And then in those margins, I can do whatever else I want to do. But I know that if I'm intentional about what gets done in my 7-day block at a time, like it's sort of just like inevitable that you'll grow and win because you've spent so much time being intentional about blocking time and planning throughout the week, that if you just run the play that you laid out, like in your highest self through prayer with like the understanding of all the things I want to accomplish. Okay, I would just map out my week and now I just have to run the play.
Amen.
And even if you run the play at like 70%, it's probably a pretty darn good week versus if you just let the week run you. Because with 4 kids in a business and the way things are, and we have a 70-pound dog and he needs walked all the time, like it's like it would run me if I wasn't intentional. And I just know I had to get a hold of myself a couple of years ago. It's about 3 years ago now. I was not in a good health space. I was eating emotionally way too much. And I was super anxious all the time. Our business was at a really low point. I was super burned out. And so, I started reading How to Do the Work, Dr. Nicole LaPera. And I started just drinking a glass of water in the morning, every morning before like anything else. I don't always do that anymore, but the point is that I was able to rebuild some of those like micro habits where I was like, I am in control. I do what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I stick to my word. I keep commitments to myself. And from that foundation, everything else has been birthed. So yeah, I'm in this like health cleanse right now. I hired a health coach a couple months ago and so I'm on my 2nd day of all juice and I'm like, I just want a smoothie so bad. Yeah. Driving by I was driving by Culver's has cookie dough and caramel as their like flavor today, and it's like listed on the thing. And I was like, you know what though? If I made my own sweets restaurant that was all healthy, so the healthiest cookie dough and non-dairy ice cream.
Yeah.
So yeah, my imagination is running a little wild with food right now.
Actually, I love that because
I know I want to do it really bad.
I love that you're talking about that though. 2 parts here. I love that you hired a coach because I'm always really skeptical when coaches are just coaching themselves. I'm like, so who's keeping you in check, right? Like,
no.
Where's that at? And the second thing is, I love that you really talk about like basically run the ball.
Yeah.
Some people don't understand her terminology. Maybe you're not sports people.
Oh yeah.
You just have to run the day. And so I love that you're talking about like really taking ownership of your day. And I think like the fact that you're talking about bringing it back to basics, because how many times I know that a lot of women don't like to admit this, but our mental health goes through so much when we have multiple kids because of our hormones. Like if we're really not taking care of it, like our mental health just kind of does this. And then you find yourself crying in front of the fridge and you can't understand why. I don't know if you've ever encountered that, but when you're encountering like so many different things, it's like, well, how can I start from scratch. And you can take control. You can say, hey, I have ownership over my body, and I can take control and say, hey, like, we're going to start from basics. So I really love that you're talking about that, and that book suggestion. And speaking of mental health, which is one of my last questions, maybe, I know that, you shared briefly that your husband, struggled with depression in the past. What does that really look like to be his helpmeet during that type of mental state? And then also, what does it look like for him to be your helpmeet during your mental states, right? Because being a mom, being an entrepreneur, being a wife, being a woman, period, we're encountering so many different feelings, so many different things, And so what does that really look like for you? Just rolling out the red carpet. What does that look like to be helpmeet for your husband?
Yeah, so I definitely could talk about it in two parts because they're very different, honestly. Like me helping him is super different just because of our personalities. But in the beginning of our marriage, I would take his like depressive episodes, I would take them very personally. And I would feel like, what did I do wrong? Or what did I not do? Or what did I say? And it was just such a bad choice. It was like, it wasn't helping him in any way. And so we have a couple videos out that are on his YouTube channel. It's called Married to Depression. One is at the holidays. It's super helpful. It's very short. It's a quick listen, and then just Married to Depression, regular. But what I've learned is like he's not trying to be that way. And I would get so frustrated at him in these low moments. And I would just feel so like, can't you just, do something? Like, can't you just try harder? Can't you just try something different?
Yeah.
Like, get up and go for a walk or whatever the case may be. And it was just such a limited perspective because, like you said, as I've had 4 kids and had like bouts of my own I don't think I've ever like genuinely had postpartum depression, nothing like that. But I've had some hard, heavy seasons. And in those seasons, it's clear now that I'm not controlling it. I'm doing everything I feel like I can do.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, if you can't relate to that, just take my word for it. If your spouse is having a hard go at it and they feel depressed or they feel anxious, they don't want to be that way just as much as you don't want them to be that way. And they would get up and out of it immediately if they could. And the best thing for you to do is just hold space, ask gentle questions, not probing questions, but just like, what could I, like, what do you need? Can I support you? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, if not right now, do you want me to ask you later? Are you hungry? Can I get you some water?
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's just so simple. But when you're in that funk, like, you want to be out of it so badly. And so, and I've just learned, like, we were pulling into Disney for the first time ever. I had never been there. My kids had never been there. And he was having a moment, because when you're about to have a really high moment, sometimes your depression kicks in, is like, whoa, 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 this is not safe. And so you kind of go low to like balance it out. And so he was watching all these golden buzzer videos on YouTube. Yeah, have you ever watched America's Got Talent?
No.
Oh my God, you gotta go watch. It's this whole YouTube corner of the internet. It's just golden buzzer moments. And they're like just these performances of either singing or dancing or whatever. And I was like, at the moment, I was like, this is so weird. We're having like this epic family moment, and you're like in this like hyper fixation on golden buzzer moments. And I learned later, he was like, I just had to get myself out of what was happening for a second.
Interesting.
So he's got,
it's like,
yeah. So I have to learn, like, I have to be okay with what that looks like. So my perfect Hallmark version of certain holidays, or my perfect like storytell version of whatever our Disney moment was going to look like, is not more important than him feeling okay, safe, grounded, connected. And it doesn't take long. Like if he needs to step away during family function, he's like, I just need to like go for a drive. I need to breathe. He's usually back 60 minutes, 45 minutes. He just needs to like,
Needs a second.
it's just a lot.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you're so attached to what things should be, then they get prioritized over the relationship with your person. And I did that. So we argued literally almost every holiday for years. And it was really frustrating, and I can almost like see the pattern coming. And so now we have proactive conversations. And I'm like, hey, how are you feeling? This whatever holiday is coming up in a few days, how do we want it to look? What do you want it to look like? So and then as far as him supporting me, I'm stubborn, man. I don't want help. I don't feel like I should need help.
That's me.
And so when I am in genuine need of help, it takes him almost like forcing it on me. And I'm so thankful that he does. But my little ego will just kick and scream and be like, you're good. You got this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I crash. And so I'm learning to text him, be like, hey, especially with this, I have a TEDx in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I need your help.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I freaked out yesterday. And so we actually sat down and looked at the calendar side by side and just kind of like made a game plan for him to like lean in some more on like kids and house stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just thank you. And I just had to have a little humble moment.
Yeah.
Because I was getting ready to like, just totally blow up the whole thing because I don't feel like I need a lot of help, but just ask. And you don't have to know exactly what you need to just be like, hey, I need some help. And then maybe like a verbal processing moment can happen between the two of you. And so I'm getting better at it. I'm not the best, but he's super awesome at seeing me in my like swirling tornado of chaos and being like, hey. Yeah, can I help you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
I feel like I'm definitely the same way. I'll be taking on a million different things, and through the years, I would just kind of like blow up. And it would always be like right before, I had to get on stage or something like that, just like an hour before. And he'd be like, but I could have helped you with all of those things. Why didn't you ask? And so I think that it's also stepping into this space of maybe it's like how we grew up, or maybe it's just hardwired in women. I have no idea. But like having a really hard time with saying like, hey, I really need help. And I was just chatting with someone about this. It's interesting how if I knew that you were having a really hard time, and I said, hey, Brittany, like, what do you need? 99.9% of the time, you would say, nothing. It's fine. Because you have so many things that you have to get done, and having to verbalize those things, it feels like it's so much more work to do than just to be like, I haven't eaten. Yeah. It would be fantastic if I could get some food, or something as simple as that. And so I love being married. Being married is so cool. I don't know what the rest of the world's talking about. Well, I'm like, having this marriage, obviously we have to work on some things in communication, and those things kind of happen. But at the end of the day, it's really cool when you're rocking hard with your husband and they see you and they're like, hey, or vice versa, how you're rocking hard with your husband and you're like, hey, I see you. I know the things that you need. And I may not know exactly, but I recognize it. And I know how to ask you gently, right? And so I guess, like, what does that really look like for showing up for ourselves, right? What does that look like for you to show up for yourself and being able to be like, hey, I need help with this. And I know that you just talked about time blocking and, taking ownership of your day. But what is that? I promise this will probably be, actually, I still have what's next for you in business. Where can listeners ultimately, like, what does it really look like for you to show up for yourself? And for a woman the woman across the screen that doesn't really know where to start, doesn't really know how to show up for herself, what would you say?
Yeah, I would go back to it. It's so simple. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. Building small wins that that you can trust yourself.
Yeah.
Like if I say that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
If I commit to this thing, I'm going to hold myself to it. And do not start super huge. Like literally I had to start with a glass of water in the morning before I had coffee and all these other things. And I was like, this is what I told myself I would do because it's a healthy habit
Yeah.
and I'm going to stick to it. And so building those consistent wins with yourself.
Yeah.
I'm committing to journaling a couple times a week and just like jot journaling, right? Like bullet points. You do not have to write a book,
Yeah.
but just get in a rhythm of being intentional about yourself and how the relationship between you and yourself looks.
Yeah.
I can build on the micro decisions that I just keep stacking those wins, because now I know that I'm a person who's a trustworthy person.
Yeah.
I can trust myself. And the way that I interact with anybody else now is going to be totally different, because the way I see myself.
Yeah.
So just literally just start small, start there, stack your wins, and obviously keep listening to podcasts like this. Just feed yourself, feed your spirit. Yeah.
I love that you said that. I think that people don't realize the greatest face of defeat and the greatest way to feed the enemy is when we continue to lie to ourselves. Right? Because it allows kind of like you're planting this seed already, or, have planted the seed of, I'm not going to follow through. I'm not going to follow through. And even though you have these great intentions, when we're actually not following through, your brain can't decipher the difference. Right. And I know that you know that. It's like your brain, if you say something, it's like, okay, awesome. But like, I know.
Yeah.
That we will procrastinate. I know that you won't follow through. I know that you won't wake up at that time. I know. And it's rewiring our brain. So I love that you're talking about that, because it's so powerful to impact ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I have control, even just breathing, like how am I breathing? How am I reacting to the situation, and so on and so forth. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. I know you're so busy. And that's
this is great. I'm excited.
I was like, hey, I'd be super honored if you came on. And when you were like, yes, absolutely, I was like, whoa. I honestly was preparing myself for I'm too busy right now, but maybe so.
Oh no.
I loved that you said yes. I'm so grateful. I really would love to know what's next for you and Daryl in business, your family journey. What's next? Are y'all have any more kids?
No. Not unless the Lord does a marry. Not on the vision board. I know that. No, we're excited. We've got some juicy stuff coming up. So we're getting ready to host, it's called Story Healers. It's a retreat we're going to do in June in Sedona. So that's the first one. We've got another one in October, probably in Naples, Florida area, but that's the first one. We've done events for years and years. This will be our first big weekend long overnight. So it's a lot of expression, a lot of story, a lot of just healing through community and story, all the healthy goodness, all the essential oils, all the books, all the hiking, all the, all the goodness. And then we'll get to do, record content and do some interviews and have the videographer there and just capture you in your essence of your story. So we're super excited about that. We like I said, we coach speakers. So that's something that we're just continuing to refine every day. We're in that conversation, and we host events here in Franklin. We do them. Last year we did them almost every month. We're in a little bit of a gap right now, but we've got another one coming up in February. And then I've got more speaking on the books already by January 17th than I had last year. So I'm geeked. I've got stages on the way. So I'm just really excited.
That's so incredible. And I'm so excited to really see how you continue to improve with your story. You're so good at that. You're so, even just meeting you, you were just briefly sharing, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I don't think I've ever felt like that. First love. No, just when you meet someone that they're you're like, that's a really cool person, and they're really authentic, and I love that. And
it's so rare. I told him, I felt so like a little kid. I was like, I made a friend today.
Same. It's really interesting because I went home. I told my husband, I was like, I think I said something like, you better like each other.
Right.
When you like connect to people and you're like, oh, dang.
Yeah, big bummer when their
No,
spouses don't connect. Yeah,
we
big
can't really
bummer.
go foresee for our husbands. They're very
No.
much like, they're like the same people. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited for them to actually meet and to, set fire maybe on some stages together. Cause
Yes. Oh, that'd be amazing.
I just got chilled when I just said that because I usually
Yeah.
don't say that. It's so interesting. Okay, Holy Spirit, I'm listening. I'm here.
I know, right? I hear you.
So where can listeners really connect with you and learn more about what you're doing? Because I know you guys have so many different things you put on for people to plug into. I don't know if there's like a cost breakdown that they can reach out to you about that, or even
Oh, yeah.
coaches that want to set fire on some stages,
Yeah.
can they connect with you? Because I am not a gatekeeper. I want everyone to win.
Oh, I love it.
I know that some people, they're coaches and they're like, oh, but like, don't talk about. I'm like, what? No.
No, yeah. We have multiple coaches and we are like king and queen of referral. Like if it's not us, I know somebody who is a good fit. Yeah.
And for that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So how can they connect with you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is my name at Brittany_Stinson. And then Facebook. So I'm the most active on Instagram and Facebook. And then I have a website, it's BrittanyStinson.com. She's there, she exists. But the best way, genuinely, if you go to the link in my bio and you just fill out the little connect with me form, then I've got your info and we can connect that way, or send me a DM. I'm an open book, ask questions, and then we've got all kinds of info. If anything I talked about resonated and you're like, hey, how do I learn more about that thing? Just ask and we can send you anything you need.
Yes. And like you said,
Yeah.
a group of coaches that could, help people really dive into different.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, we're so blessed. My husband calls it relationship rich. So if you are like, I need a coach for this, we know a lot of amazing humans. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just super grateful. I hope that this impacts whoever needs it, right?